last March, my family and I were in Washington, D.C. for a week's vacation, and we got off the plane and we were getting ready to go to our hotel. We were taking one of these shuttles that goes from hotel to hotel, and we loaded all the luggage in the back. My wife Gail and my daughter Leah climbed into the van, and it was time for me to get in, and there was only one seat left in the van. And it was a warm day, very, very hot day. But I looked in, and the guy sitting next to where I was supposed to sit was wearing a 3/4 length wool coat, thick wool gloves, and not one, but 2 ski masks. You could tell. His face looked like a double matted picture frame. Now, I had just left the airport, having been told the terrorist threat level was orange, and here I am supposed to sit next to the terrorist poster child. And to make matters worse, he kept turning to me and saying, "What time is it?" I'm thinking, it's time for us to get off this van. He kept asking me about the time, and he kept talking to the driver about how he was going to be late. And finally I found out that he was going to do a radio show. And so I asked him what he was doing the radio interview for. And he told me, he says, "I work for one of the major political parties. This is my job is to, whenever there's a political election, a presidential election, my job is to dig up every little piece of dirt I can on the opposing candidate and then have negative advertising campaigns ready to go at a moment's notice." He said, "My job is dirty politics." And he says, "I've written a book, a how-to book on dirty politics." And then he said, "So what's your book about?" Now, we didn't have a lot to talk about after that, but I did ask him, I said, "So why are you dressed like that? It's such a hot day and you've got all this stuff on." He said, "You know, I used to live in D.C. I live in Florida now, but I've discovered that every time I come back to the city, I develop convulsive asthma attacks. I can't breathe." And I thought, interesting. Your job is to foul the airwaves, and you can't breathe. Buddy, you make your own lunch.
It was a rough ride for the first couple of weeks. The following week, I had 3 people come to me, and I believe they were testing me on what my commitment was to a complaint-free world. And they cornered me and said if they could no longer complain, they were going to quit.
I myself had control over my own life, and knowing that, like, just yourself and your power of your words and the things that you do with your life, it gives you a sense of control, and it gives you, I don't know, like, more so like you got the bull by the horns and you can lead your life. It just gave me a sense of gratitude, just the gift that I have for myself.
So that's the P in gripe, power. People complain to get attention, remove responsibility, inspire envy, and to have power. The E in gripe stands for excuse poor performance. Excuse poor performance. Have you ever seen somebody first thing in the morning and said, "So how are you doing?" And instantly you think, "Oh my gosh, why did I ask that question?" Because by the look on their face, they're going to tell you. How am I doing? How am I doing? I'll tell you how I'm doing. My neighbor's dog kept me up all night long. So I finally just got up and I went to get dressed and I went to put on my black shirt. I like my black shirt. I look good in my black shirt. I've lost weight and I look good in the black shirt. I went to brush my teeth and I got toothpaste all over the black shirt. So I had to change. I put on my white shirt. I went into the kitchen and I got some coffee. And when I got the coffee, I spilled it all over my white shirt. And you start thinking, you know what, maybe if I just fake a heart attack, they'll stop talking. Is this person really trying to tell you how they're doing? Absolutely not. What they are doing is they're trying to cash in their get out of niceness free card because they are not planning on being pleasant or productive for the rest of the day. They can be unpleasant and non-productive the rest of the day, but they've had a bad enough night and a bad enough morning that you let them off. They're doing this to excuse their poor performance. Recently I was on a plane and we were getting ready to take off, and we hadn't taken off, and it was past time for us to leave. And we sat there, and the flight attendant came on the loudspeaker, and she said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the FAA requires that flight crews have a certain amount of downtime, and your flight crew got in late last night. So they have now had the mandatory amount of downtime, and So we're going to be taking off real soon. The funny thing was, people around me start complaining about this, and I'm thinking, you know what? I want a pilot who's well rested. So we pull out onto the tarmac, and it was time to leave, and time to leave, and we didn't leave, and we didn't leave. The pilot came on, and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, have you noticed pilots do that? Ladies and gentlemen, we've experienced a problem with the plane. We've discovered that one of the generators has gone bad, and we're going to have to return to the gate and get it repaired. We'll keep you informed to let you know when it's time to take off. Again, people around me are complaining. And I'm thinking, I'm glad they figured this out on the ground. So we go back, and we're sitting there, and it's not only past time to have taken off, we should have already landed in our destination. I always call my wife when I land, and so I pulled out my phone to call my wife, and this is the conversation that we had. Hello, it's me. No, as a matter of fact, we haven't taken off yet. Well, the flight crew got in a little late last night, and they have to have a certain amount of downtime, so we had to wait until they had that. And then they discovered an issue with the plane. I don't know. I'll give you a call when we get there. Okay, I love you. Bye. Now, that wasn't complaining. That was stating facts. The guy in front of me called his wife, and this is the conversation he had. No, of course not. Of course. We haven't even taken off yet. Well, the pilot, better known as Sleeping Beauty, got in late last night, and so we had to wait on him to get enough beauty sleep. And then they discovered a problem with this piece of junk airplane. What's going to happen? I'm going to miss my connection. That's what's going to happen. Well, I'm not going to see the client. Well, if I don't see the client, the deal is dead. It's not going to happen. How do I know? I know because I'm going to miss my connection. This was my one chance to see the client. Because I've missed my connection. I know I'm going to. Look, I'll call you if I get there. Goodbye. That was complaining. So a few minutes later, the pilot comes back on. Ladies and gentlemen. And the funny thing was, this was a big plane. Big plane. He said, ladies and gentlemen, we've resolved the issue, and we've got good news. We've been able to secure connecting flights for everybody on the plane, except 2 people. And then he called out the names, and my buddy, sitting right there in front of me, jumped up and grabbed his carry-on bag and went, of course, and stormed off. You know what? I was in sales and marketing for 25 years. There's never only just one chance to see a client. This guy was excusing his poor performance.
The president of the Chamber of Commerce in Depot Bay, Terry Ann, owns the candy shop in Depot Bay. She had a situation where people would come in and complain. Every time they complained, she'd give them a complaint-free bracelet and send them out of the store.
Naeem lives in an apartment complex, and he came home with the bracelet on, and he told a little girl who lives next door about the program, and she said, I don't think I can do that. I complain all the time. She's 5 years old. And he said, well, then maybe you could just wear the bracelet and do what your mother says. And she said, well, I think I could do that. So he came to school the next day and got an extra bracelet, gave it to her, and within 3 weeks, the mother of that girl contacted me here at school to tell me how it had changed their lives around the house, because the girl wasn't complaining anymore, and she was getting everyone in the grade school, this is a kindergarten student, to stop complaining. And within a couple of weeks, I had that school principal contacting me, asking me for bracelets.
So people complain to get attention, to remove themselves from responsibility, to inspire envy, to have power over others, and to excuse their poor performance.